Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star sports podcast. It's Wednesday, June 21st, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're talking Kansas Jayhawks basketball today with beat writers Gary Bedore and Shreyas Laddha, and there's plenty to catch up on. The NBA draft is Thursday, and where will Gradey, Dick, and Jalen Wilson be selected? Gary brings us up to date on the likely destinations. KU held some scrimmages in conjunction with the Bill Self basketball camp recently, and Shreyas was there and shares these observations on the newcomers. Plus, we discuss latest roster moves, project a starting lineup, and we'll bring you up to date on the Brown brothers. One, Christian, is an NBA champion. The other, Parker, is now on the KU roster. Okay, let's get started talking KU basketball with Gary Bedore and Shreyas Laddha. All right, you guys, it's been a long time since we've talked Kansas basketball, and so much has happened in Kansas athletics. So let's catch up, and we'll start in kind of reverse chronological order. So let's start with some of the latest goings on. The NBA draft is upon us Thursday night, and Kansas should be well represented as they were last year. Gary, why don't you bring us up to date on the latest mock drafts for Gradey, Dick, and Jalen Wilson? What are you hearing about their positions in the draft?
Well, I think Gradey, Dick is still considered a likely lottery pick, although somebody has him going 18th to the Miami Heat. I forget which mock was that, but the mock everybody looks at, ESPN, has him going number 11 to Orlando. Orlando, who must like Gradey, also has a pick at number 6. So if they love this guy, wouldn't that be crazy if a Kansas kid grew up in Wichita goes number 6 in the draft? But most people think it could be Orlando at 11. Indiana really likes him. They brought him in. He had dinner with Kevin Pritchard, but they pick at number 7. That could be a little early for Indiana. Utah at number 9 supposedly likes him. Okie City at number 12 likes him. So I wonder if there'll be a trade. Who knows? Jalen Wilson is considered a second-round pick, but good news for him is that most of the mocks have him in the top 10 of the second round. So it's not like they got him down there, 2 from the bottom. So most analysts think he's draftable. And one guy that I talk to all the time in the NBA still isn't discounting late first round, which Jayhawks haven't. Some of them have dropped in the past and not been drafted on draft night. But we haven't really had a story where a guy, although Christian Braun, I guess, was picked a little higher than we all thought. But what if Jalen Wilson gets lucky and gets picked first round? That'd be wild.
Yeah,
both should get picked.
Yeah, that'd be 2 years in a row for 2 first-rounders for KU if that becomes the case. So I read in your story, Gary, that among the teams that Gradey, Dick has worked out for, you mentioned them, the Magic, the Pacers, Jazz, Thunder, Mavericks, had one scheduled with the Raptors, I guess. Yeah. And just because you worked out for them doesn't mean they're going to draft you, or you don't have to have worked out for a team to be drafted by that team. But,
yeah.
And I saw where Jalen Wilson also has his handful of teams that he's worked out for. But when you say most of the mocks, the consensus of the mocks has Jalen, among maybe the first 10 or 12 in the second round, I think he's safely in the second round. You just never know about that, though, do you?
No, I'm thinking off the top of my head. I think we all thought Devon Dotson was going to get drafted, and I know he had a big party at his house, and he did not get drafted. And Udoka Azubuike, who was supposed to go late, if at all, was first round. So, and his career is in jeopardy of being over. He's a free agent, and Utah, I don't believe, wants him anymore. So, yeah, you never know on draft night. And seeing Gradey Dick that one draft picking him at 18th, that's kind of scary if he's how every year there's a guy that sits in the green room forever waiting. I hope that's not Gradey. I doubt it will be, because Kansas is hot with Christian Braun coming in as a rookie doing so well, and Gradey being so highly thought of. I don't think he'll go 18th. Lottery's top 14, and most people have him firmly in there.
Yeah, we'll talk about Christian Braun here in a minute. But Shreyas, what is it what would NBA scouts like about Gradey Dick's game? I know you spent a lot of time covering him this year and getting to know his family a little bit. And what is about his game that's attractive to the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's a guy that you can come in and immediately see an impact to be a role player right away. I mean, he can shoot the heck out of the ball. And I think a lot of times as college fans look at him, they're like, oh, he only averaged 14 or only, shot 42% or whatever from three. But with the NBA, the guys that he's surrounded with, Gradey will probably have more space than he's ever had in his life, because the guys around him are probably going to be a lot better. So it'll give a chance to have Gradey with the ball in his hands and the time to take shots that he wouldn't have had at KU, where he was essentially the guy that everybody looked at as like, if we can shut down Gradey, then we can shut down the rest of the KU offense, which worked out in the tournament for Arkansas and a lot of other teams. He's a really, mature kid. He's, well-spoken. He's a good leader, and he's willing to play any role he gets. I know he's excited about the idea of playing the NBA. It's been a dream, come to Kansas, Wichita Kid was the dream come true. And this is part two of that dream. And I remember talking to him about it for a piece back in February. And I asked him, you see all these mock drafts and stuff like that. Like, what does it mean to you? He's like, it's nice, but I'm focused on helping out Kansas. And now he's on that next step of his career. And I think he's going to have a long, long career in the NBA. And I'm really curious to kind of see who drafts him, because all the teams that Gary mentioned, I think he could play a pretty big role. I really like him with Orlando, with all the young guys they have and the tall young guys. I think he'd fit right in. Indiana, he could be a nice wing right there. And Utah, I mean, you have two other former Jayhawks right there. So, I think he could fit in anywhere, really on any roster in the NBA.
How about the same thought regarding Jalen Wilson? What is it about his game, Shreyas, that could translate to the next level? I thought when Jalen Wilson got to Kansas that he might only be there for one season. And, of course, he, well beyond that, played for the national championship team 2 years ago. And at several points throughout his Kansas career, I'd seen him mocked as a first rounder. Doesn't appear to be that in the cards for him this time, but still the potential to be an NBA contributor.
Absolutely. I think he's one of those guys that does everything on the floor well. And this is the biggest question mark regarding with him has always been, what does he do excellent? He does a lot of good things. What does he do excellent? And, Self talked about it today that, NBA teams have said he's shot the heck out of the ball as well as anybody, come in workout wise, which I think is huge for him, because you want to show that he can do one skill that'll keep him around the NBA. And in the NBA, shooting is the most important skill. He can rebound the ball really well. He's a pretty good defender. But if he can showcase that he can be a 3-and-D guy, he'll have a long career in the NBA wherever he ends up. And I think the biggest thing with him is he's talked about it with me is just he's willing to play any role he wants. He gets. He knows he's not going to be Jalen Wilson, Big 12 Player of the Year in the NBA. He's not going to get the shots that he got in Kansas. He's not going to make. He's not going to take the shot selection that he took in Kansas. Tough mid range, tough 3-pointers, stuff like that. Because if he does in the NBA, he's getting benched just because there's a lot better guys out there. And, I think that willingness to buy into his role, the maturity in his game, maturity off the court in the last couple of years after, the DUI incident, he's a guy that, I feel like whatever NBA team gets, they can mold him to whatever they want as long as they believe in his ability to become a quality role player. A team like Boston, Golden State, I could see him play, minutes in the regular season to eat up those games and eventually get himself in, 8th, 9th, 10th man in the rotation.
I know he wasn't the shooter that Gradey Dick was last season, but I'll never forget the game he had in Manhattan where I've rarely seen somebody zeroed in the way Jalen Wilson was in that game, and that was the crazy game that K-State ended up winning at the end on the Keontae Johnson alley-oop. But Jalen Wilson was just talk about on fire. It was amazing, the game that he had in Manhattan against, as it turns out, one of the better teams in the country against K-State. And speaking of Keontae Johnson, looks like a second round might be going in the second round as well, and so will Kobe Brown of Missouri. Chance to have all three of the area schools represented in the NBA draft. So a lot to pay attention to on Thursday night when the draft comes around. Okay, Shreyas, I want to stay with you, and let's get some. Let's call this part observations from Bill Self camp scrimmages, because you were all over that. Both of you guys were, but I think it's amazing to me the insatiable appetite people have for scouting reports of newcomers. Man, people want to know what these newcomers are like, and you guys got to see them up close and personal. So how about just some thumbnails on some of the newcomers? Let's start with Elmarco Jackson. What did you see from him at the Bill Self camp scrimmages?
Yeah, he's a special talent, Blair. I mean, he's one of those guys that I think he's going to be in college for a year or two, and he's going to the NBA. His first step is electric. He got to the rim at will against anybody. The only time I think anyone stopped him was KJ Adams when he fouled him hard, and he almost made that bucket anyways. He's a lot of fun to watch. He can, do a lot of really special things on the offensive end. He's a great facilitator. It seemed like game one in the scrimmage, he was like, I want to be the guy who can do a little bit, pass the ball, set up my teammates. And in game two, he was like, I just want to exert my will over the game. And he got to the bucket anytime he wanted. It didn't matter it was Hunter Dickinson, didn't matter it was KJ Adams, didn't matter who was in front of him. He was just quicker. And, you don't see that from a freshman, I think, this very often, but he was special, and I think he's going to be a fun player to watch for Kansas fans this year.
All right, what did you see from Marcus Adams?
Yeah, Marcus Adams was one of those guys that I was really curious to watch because he's been a late riser in this whole process. I mean, KU picked up in March, and they really didn't offer him a real offer till the day of, essentially. And it seems like it's paid off because he had those 40-point games with Ball Is Life tournaments. But when he played in that scrimmage, I was pretty impressed with his ability to kind of get to the right spot at the basket, which I didn't expect him to kind of be ready. I thought he was going to be a little more raw. He can really shoot the ball. He had a nice little step back, crossover, 3-point fadeaway. And I was like, whoa, like everyone watched it, like, wow, you can kind of see it. He's one of those guys that I'm not sure he's going to play heavy minutes, but he could be a guy who could be, an 8th, 9th man. And I think year 2, year 3, you could be, Marcus Adams is the Jalen Wilson of, Kansas Jayhawks.
All right, just a couple more quick ones. How about what did you see from Nick Timberlake? I know everybody's curious about him. He's the shooter, right? He's the guy that they're really going to lean on. The guy who comes at least with the has had Division I experience with his accuracy, right? They know he can shoot on the college level. Was he filling it up?
Yeah, he was crazy. It was funny because it feels like with Timberlake is he can touch the ball 5 times and you can look and he has 15 points because he's touched it 5 times. He's a guy that is always constantly relocating on and off the ball. I think he's one of those guys that out of all the guys that have come in, he just fits seamlessly because he can play with anybody because he's such a veteran older guy. It doesn't matter the lineup. I feel like his role was already predetermined. You know what you're getting out of him, which I think is so important for a team that has a lot of new faces. And he's gonna, I think, have a fun time this year with Hunter Dickinson taking a lot of coverage down low and these other guys and have a lot of open threes. It's just up to him to make it.
All right, Gary, let's bring it all back down to earth now. You've been going to these things forever. We've known historically not to put too much stock into late night at the Fog scrimmages. These are scrimmages, right? Yeah. But what stood out to you at these? And then also, what did you think of Hunter Dickinson?
Well, I went to the practice they had the day before. They had an actual practice for the campers. And I noticed that Bill didn't yell at Dickinson at all. Bill Self is smart enough to know that even though they can practice in the summer, you don't want to show your true coaching colors and scream at these guys and make life hell on them. You just want to work with them, maybe even act like you're this nice guy coach, and then you kill him in the fall. But Dickinson, in the flow of the offense at the practice, was jacking up a lot of threes, and Bill never told him to stop, but he bricked several and he made several. So it's strange, Hunter's going to shoot threes, and Bill's obviously running plays for him to do that. So we'll see. When he gets hot, he's got a nice 3-point stroke. But, Kansas is in all these close games, and when it comes down to the end and you need to Bill has somebody drive in there and get fouled or hit the shot, if Hunter Dickinson is jacking up threes and they don't win that game, yikes, because Bill Self does not throw away games just for 7-footers to throw up threes. So they have to hope that he's like some of the NBA big men that has a special talent to make threes. But Bill let him do it. He wasn't yelling at him. In the scrimmage, he led him in scoring, but in the 2 camp games, I think he led him in scoring both times. He's real good around the hoop about tapping in his own misses when he misses. But I didn't watch Michigan at all. I mean, I don't know if this guy is the greatest thing ever or what, but I know Michigan's record wasn't very good. So Hunter's probably all in on being a good teammate and a good player, and I know Self loves his shooting and all that. So we'll see, but at Kansas, you got to win, and I'm sure Hunter will buy in and try to win at all costs, but for them to win in a Bill Self system, he might be underneath the hoop a lot more than jacking up threes. We'll see.
Gary, I think that's a terrific point, especially late in close games. You might see Hunter Dickinson with taking his threes in the first half and maybe early, mid second half. But if it's if it's 70-68 with 3 minutes to go, they're inside the last TV timeout, I don't think you're going to see Hunter Dickinson shooting threes. I may be wrong, right? Could very well happen, but for what?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I know there's one highlight at Michigan where he hit one almost at half court, I think, to win a game. So we'll see. I don't think there's anything to suggest he's not going to be a great teammate. He looked like he was trying. He does talk to his teammates. One of the guys screwed up, and he was showing them where to go and stuff. So we shall see. I think he's a good shooter, but I probably should watch some tape of Michigan games because weren't they just a 500 team?
Yeah, but I don't know how well coached they were, and it seemed like there was chemistry issues on that team, and there's a reason why he's not there anymore. So
yeah.
Okay, hey, let's take a break. We got a lot more to get to with Gary Bedore and Shreyas Laddha, and we'll be right back. We're back on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Stars sports podcast, and we're talking Kansas athletics with beat writers Shreyas Laddha and Gary Bedore. And guys, I remember after the season, after Kansas lost in the NCAA tournament, and we were projecting next year's roster and starting lineup, it did not include Kevin McCullar. And the roster did not include Zach Clements. And here we are, just in summer, and both players are back on the roster. Gary, tell us how that happened. Let's start with McCullar first.
Well, at the banquet postseason, Self made a masterful move by making it perfectly clear to McCullar and his family that if he ever wanted to come back, which was not even in the realm of possibility at the banquet, he was going to be all in for the draft, that he was welcome. I want you back, Self said to him. And I think Kevin's a veteran of those NBA workouts because he did it last year. Saw the same thing, that nobody was guaranteeing him second round or whatever. I don't know if they asked flat out for that, but so McCullar rather than go through the whole thing where you work out for 12 teams, figured I'll come back. Now he didn't say it, but you get good NIL money. I don't know what the going rate is, but you get NIL money, you get another year at Kansas, and now it's his team. It was Ochai's team. It worked out well for him with the draft. It was Jalen Wilson's team. It supposedly will work out well for him, second round. And now McCullar, while not a scorer, if he can have a great year, maybe he'll be first team all league and all that and lead them to greatness. And then he gets a good second round spot. As far as Clements, picking Santa Barbara, I think he probably just started to think, what am I doing? I mean, we haven't talked to him, so I shouldn't speculate, but why go from Kansas to Santa Barbara if Kansas will have you? So he's going to redshirt, they announced today, and he'll be great at practice for, they need practice to go against Dickinson and Parker Brown. So I just think Clements just thought, I'm going to give up McCarthy Hall. I'm going to give up this great weight room and this great weight trainer and all these stuff. I mean, I imagine Santa Barbara's facilities aren't anything like KU. So my guess is he just woke up and said, Mitch Lightfoot did it. He was here 6 years, got pretty good his last year. I'll give it a shot. So that's my guess. Anyway,
That's a good one. That's a good. And I've actually been to Santa Barbara's facility.
Have you really?
Yeah. I think it's called the Thunder. I think they call it the Thunderdome where they play. Smallish, gym, but it's a great city. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Gary. If you want to develop your game, especially if you're a big man, doesn't matter your playing time throughout your career, you're going to play. There's no better place to do it than Kansas and to play for Bill Self. So Zach Clements is back, and so is Kevin McCullar and Shreyas. Kevin McCullar starts, doesn't he? I mean, I think he's going to start, right?
Oh yeah,
he'll start the three. KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, Dwan Harris, and then Timberlake. Maybe is that how you kind of see it right now?
I think so. I think Timberlake is probably locked up that 2 spot. At least has the significant edge. I mean, he's a 6-year guy. You'd expect him to play a start. The one thing I want to keep an eye out in is Morris is really, really talented. Arteria Morris and Elmarco Jackson. Those 2 guys are right nipping on the heel of Timberlake. But I think skill-wise and just looking at the rest of this roster, I think Timberlake is a better fit around DeJuan Harris and the rest of the guys. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't really need the ball in his hands. Just, get him into space and give him a chance to, take it to the rim if you want because he's pretty athletic, or, just get him an option of being on the corner and pass him the ball. And Arteria Morris, I think one thing I noticed in the scrimmage is he's very good with the ball in his hands. And that one thing was like, how can they play Harris and Morris together and maximize both their strengths if they're best with the ball in their hands. So where I feel like Timberlake's fit is a little better on that end. And you have to think seniority has to play a little bit of a factor. You're a 60-year guy. You can pick him between Kansas, UConn, and UNC. I probably predict they probably said, hey, you're starting this year. I don't know what happens by, maybe midseason it changes, but I think Timberlake has the 2 spot locked up at least right now.
Man, is Kansas going to have one of the most experienced starting lineups in college basketball next year? Unbelievable. Nobody will be less than a 3. If it's Harris, Timberlake, McCullar, Adams, and Dickinson, I guess KJ would be the least experienced guy, and it'll be his 3rd year in the program. Same for DeJuan Harris, but everybody else, 4th, 5th, 6th. I mean, at least in the starting lineup, it's amazing. It's a lot of age and experience there for KU. And Gary mentioned this name earlier, Parker Brown on the roster. I think I'm probably the only one of this group that has seen Parker play in person, unless, Gary, you caught him in a high school game or something when he was at Blue Valley Northwest. But I saw him play at Missouri a couple of games, and he is athletic. He reminds me of another Brown, Christian. Parker's a little bit bigger than his brother Christian, but not by a couple inches maybe. But the guy can hoop. He plays around the basket. He shot like, I don't know, 67, 68% at Santa Clara last year. 2 years at Missouri, 2 years at Santa Clara, and now he's at KU. Interesting get for Bill Self's team, Gary. What kind of expectation is there for Parker Brown?
Well, he averaged about 10 points a game. With Zach Clemens redshirting, that's a specific statement that we're not going to take away Parker Brown's role. You know, Parker might have beat out Zach anyway, but Self has Parker as the only other big right now. But you saw him at Mizzou. I agree. I saw him playing for Mocan. Always liked him a lot. He stood out in those games because he's a vicious dunker.
Yep.
And he's the Brown family athlete. He's a great athlete, like you said. So we'll see if he contributes anything much. But I just think that family, they everything they touch turns to gold, and KU might get a break on this. I don't know how the talks started with him wanting to come, but should be pretty good. He's supposed to be a very quiet guy, according to DeJuan Harris, who's great friends with all the Browns. And he said that Parker doesn't say a word, which is all right. You know, he's just a quiet guy. So right. I don't know. I mean, Hunter Dickinson he didn't get in foul trouble at Michigan. Hopefully for KU he won't hear, but if he does, you got KJ who can play there like last year. But you throw in Parker Brown and see if at this level he's good. So I think he'll get every opportunity to be that backup, because at practice until Zach got here, they got two bigs on one end and the rest of the team is on the other end as perimeter players, including KJ Adams. So Dylan Wilhite too is on the bigs. He's a walk-on. So Parker Brown is your backup right now. And if he's not good, then I guess they could have KJ slip down there for a while. But Bill has KJ as a perimeter player right now.
Okay, and before we get to Parker's brother and the show that he put on in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, Shreyas, just give us a little bit on KJ. I know you talked to him recently, and he really is a trend upward guy, and it looks like he's doing everything he can to even expand his game even more. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a guy that I'm a believer on from the returning players from last year, I'm a KJ Adams believer. I really think he's got the talent to play the NBA. It 100% comes down to, can he shoot the basketball? I think he does everything on the court really well. And he's, the one thing I think everyone thought was missing was, does he have a mid-range? Does he have a three-point shot? And, last year he had a breakout year, tremendous inside, really good defense, held his own against bigger, taller guys as a 6'6", 6'7" guy. His rebounding, I mean, it was okay, but he was great at boxing out that let, McCullar and Wilson get the rebounds. The one thing was always, can he expand his range? And he told me that's all he's been working on in Austin this summer. It's just shooting and shooting and shooting. And I know it's been noticed by his teammates, because Jamar McDowell was talking about how nice it looks last time we talked to him at media availability, and how he's making the shots, and they've been impressed. Obviously he hasn't thrown it out there. Hasn't shot the ball too much in the scrimmage that we watched. I think he shot it once. He made it. But if he can just get comfortable to expand his range, I think it gives KU more offensive options, and it really puts, I think, him in a contention of being potentially drafted if he can expand that range.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I agree with you. I think he is. He just gets better. He's gotten better every season, and I just expect another step for him this year. Maybe almost pushing all conference potential for KJ Adams. All right, Gary. Parker or Christian Braun with his NBA championship ring now, and it was quite a scene. It really allowed Kansas fans to plug into the NBA Finals this year to watch him play for the Nuggets. And that 15 points he scored in Game 3 was terrific. Great individual effort by Christian. And we all know now the stories. He was 3-time state champion in high school, won a national championship at Kansas, and then became the 5th player in basketball history to win an NBA title following an NCAA title, really joining Magic Johnson, among others, with that. So amazing stuff by Christian Braun. And then Bill Self was there for Game 5, I noticed, and Curtis Townsend. They got their photos with him after the game. What a nice publicity moment for KU and the program to have Christian Braun do what he did in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and the next couple of days later at the parade, he was probably the most popular Nugget.
Yes.
Going
Yes,
crazy.
He was.
Unbelievable. He's got a coach who loves him. He's praised him many, many times this year. Jokic loves him. He just, there was a point of this playoff where they didn't bench, but they went to a 7-man rotation, and Braun might be out of it. It was the Lakers series, I think. And he put him back in, and they kept him in. And I think Malone made a smart move because Braun added so much on defense. He'd steal the ball, and such a spark that it was a really smart move. They probably would have won it anyway if they went with 7 men, but that one game he didn't play. They were experimenting a little bit, I guess, and he went back to Braun. He didn't score much, but what a rookie year, and he's got a couple more years on his rookie contract. So he's on top of the world. And with all that partying he did at the parade, I watched an interview after the parade. The guy was great as far as what a coach would want. He praised all the veterans. He didn't praise himself at all. And, maybe Christian has a good bloodline, but it looked like he was drinking a lot of champagne and beer, and he seemed like it's like the classiest interview you've ever seen. He was great after basically going crazy, running up and down the street. So for that guy's sake and all the people that helped him through the years, and for his sake, I hope he keeps it up, because what a story. I mean, Blue Valley Northwest winning it every year almost. MoCan, just all that. And now, maybe you know this, is Grady Dick about to be the highest drafted Kansan ever?
From the state of Kansas. That's a good question that we're going to have to.
How about Darnell Valentine wasn't lottery, was he?
No, I don't think so. Also from Wichita, but I don't think he was. I don't think he went as high as the top 10. But I gotta double check that. And I don't know who. I just don't know who else would be in that category. We always think about it in terms of Kansas City area kids. But not necessarily the state of Kansas. You know what? I'll have to go back and see where Lucius Allen was selected. Remember the old UCLA KCK Wyandotte guy, KCK, and see where he got picked. It's something to keep an eye on, something to look up. That's for sure.
Something I wondered today, because I forgot about Darnell Valentine and how high he might have went. But if somehow Gradey went number 6 to Orlando. Wow.
I gotta think that would be the highest for a
But,
Sunflower State native.
they've been more saying he'll be their second pick. They get a 6 and an 11. But if they love him that much, they might have to trade up 1 or 2 slots to make sure they get him, because what if some Dallas grabs him at 10 or something?
Right.
But Kansas is on a roll with Christian Braun from Burlington and Grady Dick, the amazing lottery pick from Wichita.
Yeah, so it was a painful end of the season for Kansas, but it seems like everything's breaking their way since the end of that, with their roster, with the NBA Finals, with the NBA Draft. A lot of things coming up KU these days. So we'll all be paying attention to the draft on Thursday night, and you should always pay attention to Shreyas, Laddha, and Gary Bedore in the print editions of the Kansas City Star online at kansascity.com. Great catching up with you guys, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Blair.
That will do it for today. Thanks to Randy Mason for putting together the show, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Gary Bedore and Shreyas Laddha for sharing their insights. You will not find a better digital sports section in America than the Morning Sports Edition. News, features, commentary, box scores, they're all there. Check it out at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for another SportsBeat KC podcast, where we give you the best conversation in Kansas City sports.